the thing about pleasure and pain and how we process pleasure and pain is that they're actually co-located in the brain. So the same parts of the brain that process pleasure also process pain, and they work like opposite sides of a balance. So imagine there's like a beam on a central fulcrum, like a teeter-totter in a kid's playground, and when that beam is at rest, it's level with the ground. So in that sense, a little bit different than a teeter-totter, right, which is normally rested, but just imagine sort of a scale of some sort that's level.
An equanimous teeter-totter.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Some kind of teeter-totter that's like very zen.
It's been meditating.
It knows itself.
It has a mindfulness practice.
Yeah, a teeter-totter with a mindfulness practice. Perfect. I love it. Okay. And that's called homeostasis, right? When it's level with the ground. So when we do something pleasurable, our pleasure-pain balance, let's call it tips one way. And when we do something painful, it tips the other. There are certain rules governing this balance. And the first and most important rule is that it wants to remain level with the ground. And our brains will work very hard with any deviation from that neutral position to get it back into that neutral position. So for example, let's say I read a romance novel, my drug of choice, or it used to be. I'm in long-term recovery. Thank you. And that releases dopamine, my pleasure neurotransmitter and my reward pathway, and my pleasure-pain balance tilts to the side of pleasure. No sooner has that happened than my brain says, ding, 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 got to bring that back into balance. It adapts to that increased dopamine by, for example, downregulating dopamine transmission, by involuting postsynaptic dopamine receptors. That's called neuroadaptation. And I like to imagine that as these little neuroadaptation gremlins, let's personify them, hopping on the pain side of my balance to bring it level again. But the gremlins like it on the balance, so they don't get off as soon as it's level. They stay on until I'm tilted an equal and opposite amount to the side of pain. That's the come down, the hangover, the blue Monday, or that moment of craving, wanting to read one more chapter in my romance novel, even though I swore when this chapter ended, I would put it down, turn off the light, and go to bed. Okay. Now, if we wait long enough in that state of craving, right, when we're in the come down part, those gremlins get the message their job is done. They hop off and a level balance or homeostasis is restored. And that's the way it's supposed to work for the most part. The problem is, in this world of overwhelming overabundance, where we can reach out and get more of our drug of choice at the touch of a fingertip, swipe right, swipe left, whatever it is, then the faster way back to homeostasis is to just have, boop, more of my drug, right? Which we're very inclined to do. Because when we're in this state, we're in a state essentially of craving, we're tipped to the pain side, we're uncomfortable, we're dysphoric, we're irritable, we're anxious. Get some more of that good stuff, put it on the pleasure side, and restore homeostasis. The problem is that if we continue to do that over days to months to weeks to years, those gremlins start to multiply on the pain side of the balance. They get bigger, stronger. Pretty soon they're camped out there. And now we've entered addicted brain, right? We've changed our hedonic or joy set point. We need more of our drug, not to get high and feel good, but just to level the balance and feel normal. When we're not using, we're walking around with a balance tilted to the side of pain, experiencing the universal symptoms of withdrawal from any addictive substance, which are anxiety, irritability, insomnia, depression, and craving. And that's what drives reuse when we're addicted, even though we can objectively see that our life is going to pot.
So let's examine a little bit more of that wiring of searching for pleasure, avoiding pain. Evolutionarily, like how did that, obviously that served a very important purpose in a world of scarcity, like you speak to so much. And then now there's this disjunct of the world we live in currently but we still have the same wiring. And so can you share a little bit about the purpose, that function that's innate within us all serves, and now the world we live in, how it's not exactly lined up?
Yeah, great question. So, what we know about the brain is what goes up must come down. So any intense pleasure is going to be followed by pain before going back to the level position. And as you ask, why on earth would Mother Nature do that? Why doesn't Mother Nature just let us get the intense pleasure and then come back down to the level position? Like that would be so much better, right? Or for that matter, stay up at pleasure. That'd be really good, wouldn't it? Well, a couple problems with that. in a world of scarcity and ever-present danger, where we've got lions behind, every rock wanting to eat us too, and we go and eat that berry bush and are just sort of like, in a state of bliss for the foreseeable future, that's not too good, right? Because then we're not paying attention to our surroundings and we're bound to be eaten by that lion. But even if we just come back down to the level position and don't go to the pain side, we're not all that motivated to keep searching for that next berry bush. But in a world of scarcity, we got to spend every waking moment looking for the natural rewards of food, clothing, shelter, finding a mate, or we're going to die. So from the perspective of Mother Nature, this pleasure-pain balance and this what we call this opponent process mechanism is absolute genius to make us the ultimate seekers, never satisfied with what we have, always wanting more, and that way we're gonna stay alive, right? The problem is you take that ancient wiring and you put it in our modern day ecosystem where really our survival needs are basically taken care of. We've got all this leisure time. Even the poorest of the poor have more leisure time and more disposable income than ever before in the history of humankind. And we have access to all these amazing, highly potent reinforcing substances and behaviors. That's a perfect storm for all of us getting addicted.
So now we're in this paradoxical, strange, adverse relationship between affluence and anxiety, and where we have so much comfort and convenience, and to any, relative degree of wealth, where you can Uber Eats your food and swipe for your mate and, work from home on your laptop. It's like we can just kind of sit in a chair and live life that way. It's on an offer in this day and age. And that positions us uniquely with obviously those amazing capacities for connection and convenience. But at the same time, I feel like in many ways, when we have access to that lifestyle, if we don't actively seek out discomfort and consciously choose it, then it'll unconsciously choose us in many ways. And we feel the lethargy that comes from that and so many things. And so what is this plenty paradox?
Yeah, so precisely what you said, we're wired reflexively to seek out pleasure and avoid pain. And yet now when we do that, we're bound to encounter misery. So, and this isn't just at the individual level, it's probably at the level of nations. So when you look at, for example, happiness surveys, what you see is that people have become less and less happy over the past 20 to 30 years. And that decrease in happiness is most striking in the wealthiest nations in the world. Conversely, when you look at rates of depression and anxiety, they're going up all over the world, but they're going up fastest in the wealthiest nations of the world. Suicide, here in the United States, we're seeing record suicides among young people, a complete paradox when you think that we have so many privileges in this country. And we also have access to the best mental health care treatment that there is, right? The most antidepressants and mood stabilizers and psychotherapists. I mean, not everybody has access, but compared to other countries, we have more access. And yet we must be getting something fundamentally wrong about the way to pursue the good life or to thrive, because we are just seeing record rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm. And I think that what's happening, or what we're not recognizing, is the ways in which overwhelming overabundance is actually a stressor. And because our brains were not wired for abundance, we were wired for pain. We were wired to face adversity. We're wired for friction, right? But because we don't have that in this world that we've created, our brains are reeling to know what to do with all of these stimuli, all of the things that we do and ingest that release dopamine in our reward pathway. And I think as a result, our brains are compensating by downregulating our own endogenous dopamine transmission, dopamine production, probably our own endogenous opioids, our endogenous cannabinoids. All those feel-good, hormones and neurotransmitters are probably downregulated in us to try to offset all the comfort that we have, and also all the ways that we're insulated from pain, right? I mean, not only are we insulated from physical pain, but we also are insulated in many cases from emotional pain, all of the kinds of psychotropics that we take and other drugs that we use. We're even insulated from movement, right? Our lives have become incredibly sedentary, disembodied from our bodies. And I think that's really confusing for our mammalian brain and leading to a lot of misery. So, of course, therein, if that really is what's going on, we have, in the kernel of that is also the answer to our problems, which is that we have to actually intentionally seek out pain in all its guises, and we have to eschew some of these pleasures. Not that we can never indulge, but we have to really down-regulate our consumption.